What if the entire story we've been told about Roloff Farms isn't the full truth? What if Matt Roloff's grand vision, the pumpkin patch, the castle, the dreamland so many fans have visited, wasn't just built on his determination and creativity, but secretly fueled by Amy Roloff's so-called hobby? Behind the cameras, while Matt was drawing up big plans and expanding the farm into a national attraction, Amy was working quietly on something most people dismissed as side income. Yet this hobby may have been the hidden financial engine that kept Roloff Farms alive during its most fragile years. Without Amy's effort, the dream might not have survived at all. Roloff Farms has always been painted as a symbol of ambition, hard work, and family unity, but also of conflict, drama, and sacrifices that fans never fully got to see. And now, a new question hangs over the legacy. Was Amy's contribution overlooked? Did her behind-the-scenes role actually make Matt's dream possible? This is the untold story of how Amy Roloff's hobby may have been the real backbone of Roloff Farms, and why the truth matters more than ever. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For Roloff Family latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. When people think of Little People, Big World, one of the very first images that comes to mind is the sprawling, magical property known as Roloff Farms. But what fans often forget is that this dream didn't begin as a polished attraction or a money-making powerhouse. It started as a risky, almost impossible vision inside Matt Roloff's head. Back in the 1990s, the Roloffs purchased a relatively ordinary piece of farmland in Oregon. To most people, it was just acres of dirt, trees, and potential headaches. To Matt, though, it was a blank canvas, an opportunity to build something extraordinary, something that would put his family on the map. Matt was never content with the idea of simply farming pumpkins or raising a few animals. No, he dreamed bigger, much bigger. His imagination led him to envision an immersive wonderland that kids and families could visit, one that included pirate ships towering above the fields, castles rising out of the ground, and whimsical structures that looked like they were pulled straight from a fairy tale. Each project was bold, larger than life, and in some cases, extremely expensive. To many outsiders, these ideas seemed unrealistic, even reckless. Building a giant wooden pirate ship in the middle of a farm, constructing a medieval castle out of stone, creating elaborate bridges, treehouses, and tunnels, none of this came cheap. Each project required time, labor, and above all, money. At the time, the Roloffs weren't rolling in wealth. They had limited resources, and much of what Matt envisioned came with serious financial risks. Yet time and time again, he pushed forward, determined to make Roloff Farms unlike anything else in the region. The narrative fans grew to know over the years painted Matt as the visionary of the family, the creative dreamer who refused to accept limitations. He was portrayed as the man with boundless ideas, someone who could see what others couldn't. In the TLC series, this became part of his persona. Matt, the ambitious builder who poured his energy into constructing a legacy that would outlast him. But while the cameras highlighted Matt's bold projects, what they didn't always show was the cost, not just in money, but in time, stress, and family sacrifice. Every pirate ship, every castle, every structure that made Roloff Farms magical came with a heavy price tag. And at the time, no one really knew whether those risks would ever pay off. While Matt Roloff was out front building castles, pirate ships, and elaborate playgrounds on Roloff Farms, Amy Roloff was quietly building something else: stability. To many fans, Amy's activities were brushed off as side hobbies, something she did to keep busy while Matt chased his next big idea. But when you look closer, her cookbooks, speaking events, catering projects, and charity work may have been far more critical to the survival of Roloff Farms than people realize. Amy always had an entrepreneurial streak. She wasn't just the mom on TV. She had a passion for cooking, which led to her publishing cookbooks. These weren't runaway bestsellers compared to massive publishing houses, but they earned consistent sales, especially because she could market them directly to fans of Little People, Big World. That steady income may have been modest compared to TLC's paychecks, but it was reliable, and reliability is exactly what the Roloffs needed while Matt gambled on risky and expensive farm projects. Beyond the cookbooks, Amy built a brand around herself. She booked speaking events across the country, talking about parenting, faith, overcoming challenges, and life as a little person in an average-sized world. These events didn't just bring in appearance fees, they boosted her visibility, which in turn boosted sales of her books and products. Again, small streams of income, but multiple streams, and all adding up. She also launched Amy Roloff's Little Kitchen, a catering and baked goods venture. While it never became a national chain, it gave Amy a consistent local presence and another financial cushion. When Matt poured money into extravagant farm attractions that sometimes failed to bring in the expected crowds, Amy's catering and event income acted like a safety net, filling in the gaps. And then there was her charity work. On paper, charity isn't income, but it positioned Amy as more than just a reality TV mom. Running fundraisers and community events gave her both credibility and connections, the kind that can translate into speaking opportunities, sponsorships, and partnerships. It also framed Amy as someone dependable, someone practical, someone focused on real results, not just big dreams. Many dismissed Amy's efforts as cute side projects. But when you compare her steady inflow of cash to Matt's high-stakes spending, the picture shifts. Amy's consistent earnings provided stability in the years when Matt's ideas didn't pan out. While he was rolling the dice on a pumpkin empire, Amy was quietly paying bills, covering expenses, and ensuring that the Roloffs had a financial foundation. The irony, fans, and even the family at times, tended to celebrate Matt as the visionary builder, while Amy's contributions were framed as hobbies. But if you strip away the TV edits and take a hard look at the numbers, it's possible Amy's work was what kept Roloff Farms afloat during its riskiest years. When fans think of Roloff Farms, the spotlight often falls on Matt's towering pirate ship, elaborate pumpkin patches, and castle-like structures. But behind the scenes, a quieter financial engine may have been running: Amy's so-called side hustles. These ventures, often dismissed as hobbies, actually generated a steady stream of income that, when pieced together, became surprisingly powerful. First, there were Amy's cookbooks. What started as a passion for cooking and family recipes grew into published works that sold across the country. Even if her books never topped the charts, cookbook sales provided a reliable royalty check. With the show's exposure, Amy's recipes weren't just sitting on a shelf, they were being bought by fans invested in her story, multiplying her reach and earnings. Then came speaking gigs. Amy built a reputation as a motivational speaker, especially focusing on topics like overcoming adversity, raising a family, and navigating life as a little person. She was invited to conferences, charity events, and corporate gatherings. Each appearance brought not only visibility, but also income, sometimes thousands of dollars for a single event. Add to that sponsorships and partnerships. Amy became a recognizable face outside of the show. Local businesses and even national brands saw her as approachable and relatable. From cooking demonstrations to promotional appearances, Amy leveraged her authenticity to secure sponsorship deals that quietly padded her income. Individually, these streams might not seem overwhelming compared to the massive undertakings on the farm, but added together, they painted a very different picture. Year after year, Amy was generating tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases, possibly six figures from ventures that were often portrayed as extras. The key question is, where did that money go? Evidence suggests that much of it may have been funneled back into the farm itself. Whether it was to cover payroll, keep construction projects afloat, or bridge the gap in lean years when pumpkin season underperformed, Amy's income may have provided a financial cushion that Matt's grand ideas alone couldn't sustain. The timeline is telling. In the mid to late 2000s, when Roloff Farms faced periods of debt and uncertainty, Amy's projects were thriving. During years when farm income dipped due to weather, legal challenges, or overextended investments, Amy's steady checks from book sales and speaking appearances may have quietly kept the lights on. This changes the narrative. Instead of Amy's work being a side note to Matt's vision, it may have been the safety net that allowed that vision to continue. Without her hobby money, some of the farm's most iconic features might never have been completed, or worse, Roloff Farms itself might not have survived at all. Behind closed doors, Amy and Matt weren't just husband and wife, they were business partners who happened to see the world in two very different ways. And when it came to money, their philosophies couldn't have been more opposite. Matt was the big spender, the dreamer, the guy who looked at a patch of mud and weeds and saw a medieval castle or a pirate ship or a massive pumpkin festival that could draw tens of thousands of visitors. To him, money was fuel for the next big idea. The more he spent, the bigger the vision, and if the gamble paid off, it was proof of his genius. Amy, on the other hand, was the voice of caution. She wasn't against building dreams, but she was grounded in the practical. She thought about paying bills on time, saving for the kids' futures, and making sure the family had stability in case things went south. Her projects, cookbooks, small catering gigs, speaking engagements may have looked small compared to Matt's massive structures, but they represented steady, predictable income. Amy's focus was on security, not spectacle. This clash of philosophies seeped into their marriage. To Amy, Matt's spending sometimes felt reckless, as if he was willing to risk everything on an idea that might not even pan out. To Matt, Amy's cautious approach felt like a lack of faith, not only in his projects but in his ability to provide. The tension was subtle at first, but over time it became part of the larger fracture in their relationship. And here's the big question. Did Matt downplay Amy's role on purpose? Was part of his visionary image built on keeping her contributions in the shadows? If Amy's money and cautious strategies were holding the farm together when his projects went over budget, acknowledging that would mean admitting he wasn't the sole mastermind. For a man who thrived on being seen as the genius builder, that might have been a blow to his pride. In public, Matt got the spotlight for his grand designs, the castles, the bridges, the seasonal attractions that made Roloff Farms famous. But privately, Amy's careful management and small but steady earnings may have been what kept the lights on when those grand projects ran over budget. Fans often ask, if Amy hadn't been there to ground things, would Roloff Farms have collapsed under the weight of Matt's ambition? When we talk about the Roloff Farms story, it isn't just about Matt and Amy. It's also about the kids who grew up living and working on that land. For Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, the farm was more than just a home. It was a family project, a business, and at times, the source of their parents' biggest conflicts. But here, where things get interesting, the kids often saw their parents' roles very differently than fans did. To many viewers, Matt was the dreamer, the one always building castles, pirate ships, and elaborate attractions that made Roloff Farms famous. Amy, on the other hand, was portrayed as the grounding force, making sure the family was fed, organized, and financially secure. But from the kids' perspective, it wasn't so black and white. Some of them openly acknowledged that without Amy's steady hand, the farm wouldn't have functioned day to day. She was the one managing the household, keeping traditions alive, and ensuring that Matt's big projects didn't completely derail the family's finances. Fans themselves remain divided on this legacy. On social media and discussion boards, you'll find two clear camps. One side argues that Amy was always the heart of Roloff Farms, the one who gave it soul, stability, and a sense of family identity. The other side insists that Matt deserves the credit, pointing to his sheer determination and creative vision that transformed acres of raw land into a tourist destination. These two narratives, heart versus vision, mirror the very tension that lived inside the Roloff marriage for decades. And that brings us to the uncomfortable truth. This financial imbalance may have played a significant role in their eventual divorce. If Matt saw himself as the visionary and Amy as the supporter, did that dynamic breed resentment over time? Was Amy's steady contribution undervalued not just by Matt, but by the story the show told to millions of viewers? When one partner feels their role is minimized, even while carrying the hidden weight of financial stability, it can chip away at a marriage in ways that aren't obvious until it's too late. Now, years later, the question of legacy looms large. Will Amy ever get the recognition she deserves? History often remembers the loudest voice, the biggest project, the boldest vision. But there's a growing chorus of fans and even family members who are beginning to reframe the Roloff story, not just as Matt's empire, but as a joint effort where Amy's so-called hobbies quietly kept the dream alive. In the end, perhaps the true legacy of Roloff Farms isn't about who built the pirate ship or who wrote the cookbook. It's about how two very different philosophies, one rooted in vision, the other in practicality, collided, collaborated, and ultimately created something unforgettable. The question is, will Amy's hidden role finally step out of the shadows, or will history continue to credit Matt alone? As we wrap up this deep dive, let's revisit the shocking claim we started with. Without Amy Roloff's so-called hobby, Roloff Farms might not even exist today. While the spotlight has so often focused on Matt's daring vision and bold projects, the truth is that the foundation was quietly stabilized by Amy's steady, consistent contributions. The cookbooks, the speaking engagements, the sponsorships, all of it added up to real financial support at critical moments. And when Matt was taking risks, it was Amy's balance that helped keep the family and the farm afloat. It's easy for history to remember the dreamers, the builders, and the big personalities. But often, the ones working behind the scenes, the supporters, the steady hands, are just as vital. Amy's role may not have been as flashy as Matt's, but without her, the dream might have never been realized. With that said, thanks for watching and until next time.